Welcome to We Connect. Thank you very much for joining us. You have in fact joined us on a very special episode of We Connect. This is our 100th show, and it really is our pleasure to have you watch us. My guest today is Anna Funder. She's an author. She's based in Australia, in Melbourne, which is where she lives with her family, 3 little children, and her husband. Now, she's an award-winning author. She's written 2 magnificent books, one of which is called Stasiland. I have it right here with me. This is a book that actually won the BBC Channel 4 Samuel Johnson Prize. It's a very serious book, and as we go along, I'm sure you will agree with me. And then, of course, we have her second novel, that is fiction, and that's called All That I Am. Anna's here in India. She came here to Kerala to attend the Hay Festival, and she's passing through Chennai, and she's giving us her very special and precious time. Thank you so much, Anna.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, let's start first of all with the fact that today is only your second day in India, right? And you've just virtually been on and off planes since you got here. Let's talk a little bit and very briefly about the festival in Kerala.
Oh, it was wonderful.
Really?
It was terrific. I've been to 3 hay festivals in Wales, and I think I must have passed some test, and then they let me go to another one.
They invited you.
The special one in Kerala. Yes. It was so beautiful. It was lovely. It was in a palace, and it was wonderfully organised in this way where everything worked beautifully for all the writers, but you couldn't see the wheels moving. You know, it was very gently done. It was just lovely. The conversations were terrific.
Right. So having said that, what you're really saying here is that it's very useful, if that's the right word, for writers and authors and poets and thinkers to be actually at this festival?
You know, festivals in general are fantastic for writers because part of it is about listening to an audience. When people read a book, it's a very private experience and you don't get any response.
Anna, what's it like to be going to festivals? I mean, writers, thinkers, poets kind of congregate at these festivals. Is it of much use?
It's very exciting because you spend a long time writing a book. In my case, in a room by myself for 5 years writing this novel. And it's a lonely experience. It's necessary and it's rewarding, but it's lonely. And it's lovely to get out and meet other writers. It's a kind of collegial atmosphere. And I've been to many, many festivals around the world, and it means now that I have friends who are writers in many countries.
And at the festival itself, of course, you have the participation of others and members of the public as well. So is that good for writers, to actually be interacting and having people who've read your book or would like to read your book and hear you speak about it?
Look, I think it's a very nice thing to get questions from readers because reading is such a private experience that I never, it's not like I make a film and then I can go and eavesdrop on the audience and see when they laugh and when they cry. But to meet readers and have them respond to the book is very moving. I really like it. I don't actually think that it feeds my writing process, which is a more private thing, but it's a very lovely moment.
Must be a feel-good factor, really, I dare say. Let me talk about Stasiland first, because that's your first book, and that's your award-winning work here. Let's talk really about why you delved into something so deep as an issue, as a subject.
I don't know. My husband thinks that there's something wrong with me.
Why?
I don't know. He just
for
thinks
that very reason.
Yes, I think he thinks that I look at, dark things in human nature, perhaps, and he wonders why. But then he doesn't wonder too much because I think he thinks it will upset him. But I was really interested in really positive and extraordinary things about what it is to be human and about human beings. And both of these books are actually about people of great courage, so-called ordinary people, but people who really obey their conscience and refuse to either betray someone else or to do something that would make them feel that they weren't any more themselves, and or to resist very bad government, in fact. And those things are very interesting to me. And they're not dark. They're part of the better angels of our nature.
Right. Now, Stasiland really is about East Germany and the way people lived at that time there. Very moving in a way because all of it is true to life. And you actually lived there. So how did that experience impact you?
Well, I lived in West Berlin before the wall fell. And for me, I'd grown up during the Cold War when the world was divided into capitalist and communist.
Yes.
And the communist world was behind this Iron Curtain, which was actually a cement structure through Germany and around Berlin. And I think I was always fascinated by what was going on, whether there were some very good ideas in a communist society about equality and about the rights of women that were worth following, or how that world was working. And when I was 20, living in Berlin in the West, I met people who were mainly artists and writers who'd been kicked out of East Germany. So they'd been expelled from their own country for speaking out. And it made me very curious about what sort of nation would expel its best and brightest.
Right. Now, your book itself deals with all these different individuals, and, all the various people in your book. You also mentioned there that you did speak to people in the Secret Service and, the Stasi. And I was just wondering, how difficult is it to get hold of people like that?
Well,
how did you cope? How did you manage?
Stasi-land is, it's really about 4 main people who resisted the regime and who either tried to escape, climbing the wall, or who refused to inform, or who went to prison. These people were very brave and very interesting and admirable to me. But then once I found these extraordinary stories of courage, I felt that I needed to actually interview some of the Stasi men, these Secret Service men themselves, to see what the other side of the coin was, as it were. And I met a woman who said to me, "They'll never talk to you, they've all disappeared." This was in the mid-90s, when the Stasi were worried that there would be reprisals against them. And so I simply took out an ad in the personal columns of a newspaper in Potsdam, which is where very many Stasi men lived. And I rather idiotically wrote, "Australian writer seeks Stasi men, view conversation," and put my home phone number on it. I don't think I had a mobile.
Quite daring of you, really.
Well, I don't know if it's daring or mad, but it worked. So a great many people rang me on that number, and some actually were so afraid to talk to me that they rang, they'd have a quick conversation, and then they'd kind of hyperventilate and had to hang up. But I did have then this series of assignations in odd places, sometimes a cafe, sometimes, we would meet outside a church and he would be the person with the newspaper rolled up under his arm. So these were spies who had spied on their own people and who were still using spy tactics to meet with me. But I had a series of very, very interesting conversations with them.
Right. And I'm going to ask you to hang on for a very short while. We'll take a very short break, but please don't go anywhere. Do join us once again here on We Connect.